You're listening to the best of the bravest. Interviews with the FDNY's elite.
That theme makes me, just gets me pumped up, man. It makes me want to hop on the rig. I've never done the job, but makes me want to hop right on that rig and go fight that big red devil. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 183 of the Mike the New Haven podcast. If you haven't checked out 182 and 181, that was a double header on Tuesday. First, it was news theme. First was Shoal Garzulo from NBC. Long time coming to get her on, 15 months to be exact. I don't give up, if you can tell. So she was finally able to be here. And Roma Torre in the nightcap. Formerly of New York One, their first on-camera hire in 1992. So we go from news to the firehouse for volume 17 of the Best of the Bravest, interviews with the FDNY's elite, with my next guest, who for a glorious 23 years fought fires as your classic old-school engine man in a borough where fires are as common as the rising of the sun, which stops at engines 224, 248, 290, as well as a stint in Ladder 113 in the 12th Division when he was newly promoted to lieutenant. He is both seasoned and salty, and that for volume 17, and like I said, of the Best of the Bravest, interviews with the FDNY's elite, retired FDNY Lieutenant Rich Duemig. Rich, welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Mike. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me on, and I feel flattered that you bumped ex-Commissioner Daniel Nigro to have me on. So.
That is true.
You better clear that up, though, because
yeah, I should say, and we sent Commissioner Nigro and Mrs. Nigro. They're our best, of course. They're not feeling too well. Dan is a little under the weather. That's why he couldn't be here tonight. I'll get him on later in the summer, though. So, Commissioner, if you're listening, feel better. I'll get you on eventually. You're not going to escape me, but feel better. Rest up. And I hope to see you soon. So, no, I had to pivot to somebody. And you know what? Thankfully, you stepped up to the plate tonight. And I think we're going to have a great show. So before we get into your exploits in the fire service, tell me, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in, I was born in Brooklyn. I lived on Logan Street in East New York when I was first born. I was born in St. Mary's Hospital on Eastern Parkway. Then, I don't know, I was about, 4 or 5. We moved to Hollis, Queens. And then we moved from there to Roxbury in Rockaway, across from Fort Tilden. And I've been here ever since, I think 1958.
The Duemig legacy is strong.
Yeah. I have all my kids living around me, so I'm their maintenance guy. So that takes up a lot of my retirement. But I've been here. We've been a homeowner, my wife and I, here since 1974.
That's very good. Very good.
So that's pretty much it. I got on the fire department, as you know, in 1978. I was in the 3rd class off the new list. I was very fortunate. I ended up 505 on the list, and got on a 3rd class in 1978 when, yes, the city was burning. They call the war years from the 60s and even into the 70s, but there was still a lot of fires going on, 70s into the 80s.
No, of course.
So 224, I was there for 5 years. It was a single engine in Brooklyn Heights. And, I've told people before, if we didn't put the flag out, you wouldn't know the firehouse was there. But it was funny because we would stand out in front of the firehouse, and Norman Mailer would jog by the firehouse in the morning, and some of the guys would, say hi to him like they knew him, and he would say hi, and he goes, and he would jog back home, But I had a nice run at 224. It was a slow company, but we interchanged back then, and went to a lot of fires because we used to interchange with engine 230, which is at Park and Sumner, and you caught work there, even though we weren't doing our own neighborhood. I think I was on about a week before I caught my first fire, and that was an oil burner, which wasn't too bad. But a lot of great guys, went through that place. It's like I said, it's a brownstone pretty much on Hicks Street, downtown Brooklyn. I have a lot of good memories there. You always have memories of your first firehouse, and it's always tough to leave. But I was looking for more work, and closer to home, I used to drive by 50 firehouses to drive downtown Brooklyn, which would take me like an hour and a half. And traffic was mirrored at Brooklyn Queens Expressway. So it was such a pleasure when I transferred to 248 in Flatbush, which I pretty much learned a job there.
Well, let's backtrack for a second. Was the job always your first choice?
Actually, it was crazy because I had taken the sanitation test, the fire department test, the police test, and I also took a test for the federal exterminator, and I would have taken any job that came up. And you know what happens? You don't hear nothing, and then all of a sudden, everybody wants you. I got a call from the sanitation. I got to go from the cops, so I ended up going to the fire department at that point. But I would have taken at that point any job for that matter, but the fire department, I got to say, like an old timer once said, you work for the city, you don't get rich, but you make a nice living. And, it's been good to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
This is volume 17 of the Best, the Bravest interviews with the FDNY's elite. Our guest tonight is retired FDNY Lieutenant Rich Duemig. If you have a question for Lieutenant Duemig in the chat, either through Twitter, LinkedIn, or YouTube, where we're live on tonight, all three, make sure you fire it away, and I'll make sure that he sees it at a certain point. So you wanted more work. That brings us to 84. You mentioned going to 248/ladder 113. You shared a quarters with them. How much work was common in a given shift?
Oh, first of all, actually, no, 248 was a single engine with the battalion.
Right.
249 is in 113. But I'll never forget my first day in 248. It was a Sunday day tour. We had 14 runs, and I went to a fire. This is a Sunday day tour. My first tour there, and I was all excited about that. I was like, okay, this is why I'm here. Great firehouse, great guys. It's still a great firehouse. I pretty much learned the job there. And when it's good, when 5 years pass by in a firehouse and it seems like it was 6 months, it just flies by. We had some, I'll tell you, I got burnt there a lot. And and probably because of the fires we had. We used to get a lot of basement fires and PDs because, there used to be a lot of these gypsy cab drivers. They were all living in the basements and SROs. So it was really some time. And then the crack epidemic was going on, and there was a lot of fires in Flatbush. And Flatbush Avenue was always tough because we didn't do good there. Old stores. And even before I got there was a couple. They had some major fires, collapses, and fortunately nobody was killed there. But yeah, I had quite a run at 248. It was really a great spot. Attracted great guys. Officers were super. And like I said, I pretty much learned the job there. And we were always, like I said, I can remember like times when other companies were going sick around us and we were going to another fire. I can remember one time I got burned. We went to a fire, I got burned. I come back to the office. I said to the lieutenant, I said, "Hey, Lou, my back of my neck bother me. Am I burned?" So he looks at me, he goes, "Oh yeah, Rich, you got a little burn back there." And there's a big pause, and I go, "So you ready to go back to service, Lou?" I'm not getting any sympathy from the lieutenant. So he goes, "Well, is the rig ready?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, put us back in service." And off we went to another run, But that was the kind of place it was. I mean, the lieutenant was great, and you never wanted to buck him, and that's just what we did, But like I said, we attracted great guys, and guys went through there, got promoted, did very well, and it's still a super firehouse. Like I said, it's still pretty busy, and the neighborhood's really on a big upswing over there. There's all kinds of construction, new buildings, and stuff like that.
The thing, not to cut you off, that marvels me though is that, and I don't know how you guys get through it. It's just that unless it's a serious injury where you cannot move basically and you have to be hospitalized, you guys really tough it out, man. It doesn't matter what it is in most cases. Like I said, unless it's something very serious like life-threatening, you'll keep going.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes, but then it depends on what you're doing. Like one time I had a serious fire, and it was Christmas Eve, and I was backing up the nozzleman, and he went to the burn center, and I didn't go sick, and I was burnt. because it was Christmas Eve probably. And later on, he had a case, I guess, because of the bunker gear and all of that. He was, had a case against the landlord of the city, whatever. And I was retired about 7 years. The lawyer calls me up and says, Rich, listen, I'd like to talk to you about a fire you were at, fireman so with. I go, he says, he was burned at. I go, oh, which fire are you talking about? East 21st or Linden Boulevard? And she goes, what? I go, I go East 21st or Linden Boulevard? She goes, oh, the one on Linden Boulevard. So then she goes, you happen to remember who was working? And I rapped off every name that was working. She goes, and she says to me, what else do you remember? I says, well, we're out on BI. It was about 11 o'clock, sunny day, fire out the windows. We pulled up. It was a guy next door looking to jump. She goes, excuse me, Lieutenant, can I just say to you, do you realize this fire was 25 years ago? She says, you're the only guy that even remembers there was a fire. I said, I remember pretty well. And she says, do you remember what time of year it was? I go, well, I remember a Christmas tree in the living room. When we pulled in, the fire was in the kitchen, down the hallway, out the door. She goes, it was Christmas Eve. So I had quite a memory, and she couldn't believe it. So, I said, oh, by the way, I got burned. She goes, you got burned too? I said, yeah, I got burned pretty good, but I didn't go sick. It was Christmas Eve. Joe ended up in the burn center for like 4 days. Fortunately, it was nothing too serious, but that's, sometimes that's the way you roll, But,
CFD 335, 346 says now guys stub their toe and they're off for a year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hurt feelings, you get sick time.
I was heard at work today. It's like the getting salty drop that you often hear. So there's that, and that's the thing about where you were at 248 during that time is that I remember talking about this with Bobby Gallione from Rescue 2. There was so much work to go around, and given the neighborhoods that you're in and given the severity of the fires, you want to be first due. And it's not that there's a dislike there. It's a healthy competition because each company wants to do their best. Was there extra pride? Granted, at the end of the day, what matters is putting the fire out, and if there's people inside, evacuating them. But was there extra pride in being first due, and not only being first due, but being able to take care of a job without having to call for a rescue?
Listen, everybody always wants to be first due with a fire. Nobody wants to be standing out front watching somebody else put out a fire, especially if it's your fire. If it's in your neighborhood and they look at you and say, well, where were you? But I'll tell you the truth, even when I got promoted, I always try to do the right thing, and help the company. And yeah, as far as the bravado, I mean, you get a reputation after a while, like I heard a story about a guy talked about 290, and he was in one of the neighboring trucks, and he was telling a guy from 290, he says, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to tell you this, but if anybody ever asks me, I'm not going to admit it. And he said, the statement he said was, I was never worried going a floor above a fire if I knew 290 had a line below me. And that's a pretty good statement coming from companies surrounded by us, And he said, I'm telling you right now, I'll never admit to that.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. But the first, everybody wants to get in first due. I remember, getting in second due, and it happens. Things happen, but I look at the fire and go, listen, if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't have put out the fire. We got them water. We, helped them with the line. Back when I was a fireman, I'm like, and these guys are pounding their chests, and I'm going like, oh my God, So listen, it's a team sport being a fireman. All right. You can solo and all of that, and it's a team sport. And if one little thing is missing, things go bad. All right. I mean, from a guy not placing a ladder, a guy venting too soon, a problem with water, but these things do come up too. And it just, things happen. But, I mean, it's always good to, there's always been a big competition. There's talk in the Bronx. There's no competition. It's after you, but, I'll tell a story. One time I was driving, and we're headed to a box. It's a private dwelling. A private dwelling before 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning is usually a good box. It's a fire, you know.
Mhm.
So it's like one of those close boxes, you know. And I get to the corner, and I stop at the corner. Now the first due company is coming from directly opposite me, and he's like 6, 8 blocks away. So I stop at the corner, and I look down the street. I don't see anything. So I wave the guy in, you know. So all the guy said to me, "Hey, Rich, what are you doing? Why did you do that? We had him beat. Why did you let him come into the block?" I go, "Listen, because the next time, if they're half a block away and I see smoke or fire down that block, I'm going to go down and take the fire. All right." And they're going to say, "Oh, that's Richie. He doesn't do that all the time. What a nice guy. Something must have happened." You know. So I said, you choose your places where you want to, you know, get a fire. So the guys got a kick out of that, though. Oh, okay. You know,
Playing the
like,
long
look
game.
at me like, what are you waiting for them for? We're here now. You know, there could be a fire, but I'm like, I kind of figured there was no fire because private dwelling in the morning like that, you would have had a lot of phone calls, and we weren't getting them. So I think it ended up being just an oil burner or something, but it was nothing. But so you got to pick and choose your where you step your game up. But
I do want to ask you briefly before you continue. Is I don't know how many medical runs you guys were doing back then, but it's interesting when you were in 248. You mentioned the crack epidemic. Not just that, AIDS was happening too, and that was really ravaging the city. Were you doing a lot of medicals during that time?
No, because the CFR kind of started later on.
Okay.
When I got to 290, we were doing a ton of it. And we had the AIDS thing going on. And then because of the HIPAA law, you couldn't ask, and you're trying to get that information. Personally, I never figured that you could get it from just handling somebody anyway and all of that. So, but most of the people were good about it, and I would ask them like, well, medical history, you know what I mean, and they would go, "Oh, well, he's got a heart problem, this, that." I said, "Is there anything else I need to know?" And a lot of times they'd say, "Oh yeah, she or he's HIV or whatever," which was really good. I mean, we always took the precautions anyway, but it was nice that they even, in that time, especially when it was kind of really looked down on it to give out that information. They give it up. When I was in 248, though, I mean, we went out on medical runs. I mean, one morning we had a kid hit by a car in Millstone in church, and it was terrible. I mean, and it was most of us were working. All of us, I think, were working like it was our first night tour. So we worked 15 off the next day, and then 15 back that night. And it was like a solemn firehouse that night. We all were just eaten up by that kid getting hit, going to school, and we all felt it, and you could sense it in the firehouse. Nobody was talking. And I think we just looked at it as like, wow, that could have been our kid, and it's one of those things where you can't do anything. We couldn't do anything. It isn't like going to a fire and you say, "All right, we rescued somebody." This poor little kid, and her brother was there with her waiting on the corner. So it was a tough day. But we did go to some medical things like that. I mean, we went to cardiacs and things, but it wasn't anything like later on when the CFR came in, and that started. But
Retired Lieutenant Rich Duemig is our guest tonight. This is volume 17 of the Best of the Bravest interviews with the FDNY's elite. More with Rich in just a second, but a shout out to our friends in the live chat. The Pranzos are here. Raquela and her better half, retired NYPD street crime lieutenant and author Peter Pranzo, as well as CFD 335-346, who had a question earlier. And I Watch Baywatch, not your mother's role model, who is a familiar face in the Getting Salty chat. Thank you, sir or ma'am. Don't want to assume your gender, don't want to get in any trouble for tuning in tonight. So, that said, a couple more notes on 284 before I get to your promotion in May of 91. As a nozzleman, and granted, this applies to every company you worked in, but especially during that time when there was so much work to go around, it's not as simple as moving the line in and putting the fire out. There's a lot of complicating factors depending on the buildings that you're operating in. Sometimes there are single resident occupancies, as you talked about earlier, sometimes private dwellings, sometimes businesses, and you don't know if they have anything that's chemical or flammable in them that could further exacerbate the problem. And what's more, you don't want to give up the nozzle. Any good nozzle man that's worth his weight in gold does not want to give up that nozzle. So dealing with those complicating factors where you're just getting beat up, tell me about refining your craft as a nozzleman and what it takes ultimately, in your estimation, to be a good nozzleman.
Well, it all comes in time with, going to fires. Not everybody that joins the fire department ever been in a fire, and it's that learning thing that comes up. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. Like I know when I was a nozzleman, we had a fire on the top floor of a 4-story multiple dwelling. And the truck takes the door, and I'm seeing it light up at the door, and all of a sudden one guy comes flying out. They're trying to make a search. Another guy comes flying out to getting burned. I don't know if there's anybody still in there. So I get water. I leapfrog over everybody to try to get the line between anybody that's there and the fire, and that was some fire. I mean, we had a bad, the line must have been kinked. I mean, it was a 4-story stretch. I was getting burnt. And it's one of those things like they used to tell you, listen, don't open up the line until you actually see the fire, Well, I was getting burnt. And I'm like, hey, let me give it a shot. And I opened the line and I figured, let me give it a quick shot and shut it down, Well, it didn't get any worse, but the line, the hose line, the water wasn't hitting the ceiling, and I'm trying to move on this fire and just hoping that, okay, maybe eventually I'll get water, but it's tough you could talk about those things all the time, but I mean, there is some stuff in the books like, well, when you see the lighting up at the door, the smoke is ready to to ignite, or it's hot gases, so it's really almost like trial and error. I mean, you can read up on a lot of stuff, but it all comes, and any officer comes in too. He might see something, or he might know something. Like at this fire, I knew I had to go to the right, and the officer's yelling at me, you got to go to the right. I said, I know I got to go to the right. I'm trying to find the right. So, I mean, these things happen, and I'll tell you, that's the problem if you're in a slower company, to get that experience. And not only that, but let's say you go to a fire today, you don't go to a fire 6 months. You forget what happened 6 months ago. And it definitely helps when to have that background. As an nozzleman, it's funny, but a lot of the job is getting that line to the fire. And, a lot of nozzlemen like, hey, we could put a baby on that front of that line. It's getting that line there. You know what I mean? It's not rocket science to put the wet stuff on the red stuff, So it's, like that talk about getting a nozzleman. Oh, he's a great nozzleman. I'm like, yeah, he's only as good as the 4 guys that are behind him. There's a lot of great nozzlemen, because I had this out with a guy one time. He goes, oh, I'm a great nozzleman. I go, really? I said, I think you're only as good as the 3 guys that are backing you up to get the line there, because anybody could put it out. I mean, you see reporters, they go to the rock and they'll put out a fire. I mean, without any training, right?
Right.
So
well, what did you say earlier? Firefighting is a team sport.
Right.
Right. It's not just one guy getting all the glory. I like it. And I think a good analogy is a basketball team. If the center puts up, I'll use the old school Knicks of the 90s, Patrick Ewing putting up 35 points. Well, how did he put up 35? Yeah, he hit his shots, but who was getting him the ball? John Starks or Charles Oakley. Right. So, I mean, that's the point, It's not just one guy.
Exactly. It's the being a nozzleman, like I said, it's all about getting the line there. And how did that happen? And without the other guys, it doesn't happen. So it is a team effort, and you can't get away from that team effort, and that's why it's important. Like when your second do or third do, you know, to try to do the right thing. And you know, because when we lose water at a fire, bad things happen. You know, you got the trucks trying to make rescues, you're venting, and you know, things are happening, and without water, things go bad really fast.
Right.
And everybody always talks about it, like even in a salty podcast, they talk about, you know, get the fire out, things get better real fast. You know, so.
Yeah, it's true. And you know something, and I think everybody, especially the guys that have moved on to the SOC squads or to the rescues, understand that because, you know, everybody starts off in an engine company 9 times out of 10 or a ladder company. So before they were them, they were you know. So
Right.
I think that they're appreciative because how are you going to make a rescue if you can't see it? I remember watching the Still Riding documentary that focused on Rescue 1 and Rescue 2. And Pete Romeo from Rescue 2 was saying it's tough because sometimes, as you said earlier, trying to find the right. He's like, you're trying to find the rear, but you're asking yourself at the same freaking time, where is the rear? You know?
Right.
That's why you got to put, as you said, the white stuff on the red stuff, and you'll find it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. But when everybody's in the smoke, it's sometimes like, okay, we're all in the same boat. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, now they have the camera and stuff, which helps. But you know, it's I know back in the day, the way I found a fire is if I felt the heat on my face or my ears, okay, it's over that way. You know, we didn't have cameras back then, so it was really just feel and trial and error. So it's like I said, it is a team thing, and it's good when you got a good team behind you. You know,
Right.
from the chauffeur, you know, to the officer, right up the line.
Right.
We had a fire in a basement, and it was just when we went from 5-man manning to 4-man manning, and I had the control guy. My control guy that night was the strongest guy I think I ever worked with, and he was outside the window. We ended up jumping in a window to go in the basement, and we put out the whole basement fire and a fire in the rear yard because the fire was throughout the whole basement out of every window. So after the fire is over, he comes up to me. His name was Larry O'Donnell. He comes up to me and goes, you know, boss, I don't feel like I really did anything at that fire. I go, Larry, are you kidding me? I said, if it wasn't for you, we don't put out that fire. We never once did we ever have to ask for more line. I think, I tell you the truth, I think sometimes Larry was pushing us with the line through the basement. I mean, and he was like kind of dejected, like, you know, he felt like he was outside, not part of the team, but he was there doing his job, you know, and we didn't have that extra guy. So there was 2 guys on the line and Larry outside to make sure we had enough line. And it was a deep building and we got through it. And, you know, I think he felt a little better after that. But here's a guy that thought he wasn't part of the team, and he was a major player in the team. So,
Right. I do want to ask you, you know, getting to May of 91, you got promoted to lieutenant. Guys will take the test years in advance and they got to wait on a list a while unless crazy circumstances happen and they'll get promoted quicker. First, this is a 2-part question. When did the idea of wanting to move up pop into your head? And when did you take the test? How many years prior to actually getting promoted in 91?
I think it was like 2.5, 3 years.
Okay.
I took the test. I was in 248 at the time. That's when I made the list, and I went to 113. I had worked in the truck here and there, but a lot of times coming from an engine, if you went to a double company to work in the truck, there would inevitably be a guy in the truck working in the engine. Hey, Rich, you mind if I stay in my own company? Yeah, no problem. You know, every once in a while, I just ask, you ask the guy, listen, you mind if I work in the truck? I'm looking to get a little truck time, you know? So what really helped me with the lieutenant's test was I had a really good memory. Wasn't
No
that
kidding.
I wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer. There was a lot of WNYF questions, and I nailed every one of them right. And it was amazing because I remember sitting there going, I could see that question. I could see it's up the right hand corner, that sentence, you know, and that really helped me. I was a little bit back on the list. I just at that point, I just wanted to make the list, you know, and I was fortunate enough to make it. And then I went to 113 and spent 18 months there. And you know, I caught some fires there. Worked with some great officers there, and learned a lot about truck work there. I got a great story about 113. I don't know if you want me to run into it.
Sure, go ahead. Any story you want to tell.
Okay. Well, it's the story. It's the summer, and it's a hot summer night. I think it's like 92, and it was about the time when the ESU was coming into the emergencies. You know, there was that battle of the badges things going on with the rescues and ESU. Well, we get a run. I think it was about 7 o'clock at night, and we get a run for a stuck occupied elevator. So we respond over there, and there's a ESU truck parked in front of the building. We don't think nothing of it. So we come in the building. It said the elevator was stuck on the 4th floor. So as we're coming up the stairs, we can hear like a loud voice, and this guy, it's echoing throughout the whole building, you know. And as we're getting closer, it's getting louder and louder and louder. So as we get up to the 4th floor, the roof man goes up to kill the power on the elevator, and we come up to the 4th floor, and there's 2 ESU guys, and they have, I'll tell you, they had tools spread out over the whole floor, and there's about 8 people around, and there's this guy who's must be like the mayor of the building, and he is giving it to these 2 ESU guys left and right. I mean, those people will be dead by the time you get them out of there. You know, he's going on and on. Thank God the fire department's here now, you know. So we're just kind of, we don't want to get in any controversy here, but we look in the elevator. There is literally, I think, 6 people shoulder to shoulder. They probably couldn't pass out and faint because there was no way for them to fall down to the floor. All right. So these 2 guys, I really feel bad for them. They're covered in sweat. They got tools. I even think they carried a Hearst tool to the 4th floor. So with it now on top of the people that are there, these 2 guys got, you know, another 8 sets of eyes watching what they're doing. So that now they're rushing to try this, try that. So finally, this guy says, "Why don't you let the fireman try?" You know. So the lieutenant just says to him, "Guys, you want us to give it a go?" So the guy just gives a nod. The lieutenant takes the elevator keys, flips them to Bruce, who's probably only opened like 1,000 elevators. He's been in 113 for 17 years, right? He goes over to the door, and in 2 seconds, boom, boom, the door comes open. Well, you know what happens with this guy now. I told you guys an hour ago to call the fire department. You didn't listen to me. And he's going on and on and on. So we get the people. Our lieutenant goes to the 2 guys. "Are you guys okay?" They go, "Yeah." "Okay, we're taking up. Give me your name." That's it. We're gone. But that guy, I'm telling you, he must have been riding those 2 cops it was terrible. And the worst part about it is probably these guys were like thrown into the ring, you know. I mean, elevators, some of them are knack. You had to know the right key. You know, you had to kill the power. I mean, these guys probably went into this with very little training, right. You know. So
now they have it. Now they can do it easily.
Yeah.
You know, but that back then,
in fairness to them, but this guy was relentless, and he was loud. You know, I mean, I got to tell you, we were grinning when we left because everything was going on. But working at 113, we got, you know, and 249, we always got along good with the precinct. We never had any, you know, issues. You know, we used to have issues with meter maids and stuff like that, but not that.
Well, I think everybody has issues with meter maids, to be fair. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love cops, but I got issues with meter maids too. Believe me. You know, well, I can't have that many issues. My mom was a meter maid for a while, you know, here in New Haven. So I got to take it easy, Ma. I love you. Don't get me mad at me. But no, I think it's funny because it's changed so much. I remember one of my guys from the bomb squad. He was in one truck in Manhattan before he went out to the bomb squad in 2002. He was telling me, he's like, by this point, it had changed dramatically. In the mid 90s, he's running up to an elevator in Manhattan. One truck had happened to get there first. And he's calling one truck. He's like, "I need this, this, and that." By now, they have the training. By now, they know what to do. And he hears a voice calling for the same exact equipment from Rescue 1. He turns around. It's Paul Hashagen. And he turns to Hashagen. He's like, "I guess we're working this one together." He's like, Hashagen goes, "Yeah, absolutely." And they end up, you know, hand in hand, as they do many times now, working together, getting the people out in short order. But back then, God, it must have been, as you said, poor guys, it must have been torture for them.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a lot different. I never had issues, even when I was in 290. You know, when we, dealing with the ESU or anybody like that. I was actually more than happy to turn it over to them. If those guys were there and they're working, because I'd just soon be available to go to a fire, opposed to, using the jaws of life to open the door when there's somebody just sitting in the car, nothing wrong with them, And a lot of times I can remember going up, they go, "Hey guys, I got the door open the other side. You want to just slide them across?" Opposed to, "No, we got it. Okay, you got it. All right, give me a name." And I would take up. I said, "You need us?" "No, okay, we're gone." So I never minded. To me, it was not something to roll around the street with. But like I said, I wanted to be available for a fire if it came in, because you could get tied up at those things for a long time, especially if it's just kind of nonsense, stuff,
Yeah, if it's tedious, and they have a great mastery over pin jobs. I think they call them 53s, and they're able to do that. Collapse rescue, they're able to do that, and I think what's helped it. Before I continue on your career, is FEMA. When Downey, two guys, Ray Downey and Mike Core from ESU, when they put together the task force one, comprised the ESU guys from the PD and FDNY guys, that I think really ended it, because I my people saw it firsthand. My family, being Dominican, of course, we got hit hard by Hurricane George in '98. Those guys did wonders down there in the DR, and they did wonders in Oklahoma City, did wonders locally after Sandy.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was just a change, Everybody nobody ever likes change, and I think that's what it was,
Right. It's tough for everybody.
Yeah, it's tough, but I try not to get too involved with the politics at times, which made it a lot easier. And
sure.
plus working in East New York, I needed them and they needed me, for altercations, stuff like that. We were there, when the shots were fired, we needed them.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, but
sure.
there was in East New York was the gunfire and stuff. Well, it's still going on, I know, but
unfortunately,
at one point it was. I tell you, I was so disgusted. At one point, we go to a project, and this kid is shot in the arm, and I couldn't believe he died, but he was shot, had a bullet hole in his arm. We're in the middle of the thing, and I'm like, I don't know how many kids were shot that summer. I'll tell you, I wanted to take the rig, pull it in the middle of the plaza there, go on a loudspeaker and say, when is this going to stop? Go in your kids' bedrooms, go in your apartment, and bring all the guns down to me, Then I was going, wait a minute, if I do that, they might just do that. And they might just bring the guns down. But I'll tell you, you got to start somewhere. And I think maybe the religious groups and the cops should get together and go through these neighborhoods and say, listen, you want this to stop? I mean, we had a 13-year-old girl, right? Killed.
11 by a 15-year-old kid.
Right. I mean, the kids are not carrying these guns around with them all the time. They're in the bedroom. They're under the bed. They're in the apartment. They're in the house. I mean, and get the parents, say, listen, you want it to stop? We may not be able to stop it, but we could put a halt on some of it,
But that's Rich, that's the problem. Where are the parents? Where are the parents?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the parents or the kids, Hey, listen, when we were kids, right? You wanted to hide something from your parents, you found a way. So
that's true.
I mean,
that's true.
So you can't always throw it all on the parents, but I mean, the stuff that was going on in East New York back then, I mean, it was tragic, 16-year-old kids, shot in the head, and it was a tough time. I mean, I used to sit in the firehouse on night tours and listen to gunfire outside the office and going, you think I should dive under the desk? I'm doing paperwork or something, and it's bang, 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 all night long. And I'm like, this is just unbelievable, Fortunately, knock on wood, nothing really ever happened. I do have one story where I was probably real lucky. We got a run. It was about 7:30 at night. We get a run to Flatlands, a hotel in Flatlands near Penn. So we go out. We're first due. Us in the truck were first due. So I go and check it out. It was nothing. They thought they had a fire in the room. It was nothing. So while I'm ready to take up, my chauffeur calls me and says, "Hey, Lou, there's a good box coming in. A report of a fire." I go, "Where?" "Across the street from the firehouse." I go, "What?" "Put us available." All right. So we become available. The box had already been out. So 332 and 175 got the box. What ended up happening was there was two guys arguing in the hallway. They were actually brothers. And one guy yelled, the one brother yelled to the other brother, "You're going to fire on me?" The lady in the back apartment thought they were yelling fire. She called in a fire. Okay. If we didn't have that run, I would have been the first guy through that door. And if this brother shot his brother, this guy shot his brother, what would he have done to me? And those coats weren't stopping a bullet. So it's almost like fate that we caught that. I'm telling you, if we didn't catch that run, certainly who knows how many guys would have been shot. But I know I wouldn't have jumped on the rig. I'd have been right through that front door because it was directly across the street. And this guy had shot his brother and ran out. I think he shot him twice, matter of fact. But talk, how lucky was I? I mean, we're talking literally 5 minutes. If that run comes in, 5 minutes earlier, who knows where it would have went. And not only for me, maybe, the other guys too. So talk about, sometimes you just got to be lucky. And, but that's what kind of gun nonsense was going on in that neighborhood. But
I think you know this person, Jeanette Mulholland. She says, "Not your kids. We were perfect, Lieutenant Duemig."
Yeah. You know who that is. That's my daughter, my oldest.
Appreciate you tuning in, Jeanette. I do want to ask you, though, that night before you started as lieutenant officially in the 12th Division, we all Monday morning quarterback in our heads about anything, but you're thinking I imagine you're thinking to yourself, how do I establish myself as a leader? I don't want to be a bad lieutenant. I don't want the guys to look at me like I'm a joke. So the night before, take me through your game plan in your head and your nerves too, to making sure that you hit the ground running as a newly promoted LT.
Well, one thing about my last tour in the fire in 113, we catch a fire in a store, and I'm in there searching. The fire was up in the mezzanine, and I feel something. I go, "No way!" I thought I found somebody on my last night in 113. It ended up being like a big sack, but it felt just like a body. And I was like, so that was my last night in 113. But, one thing about the promotion, at first, I'm worried about the paperwork, I'm like, I was never a big paperwork guy. I had no college. So, but one thing about the fire department, it was set up in structure where if you went into the file in any firehouse in the city, it was set up the same, meritorious acts would be in a certain place, administration. So if you had anything to do in the last 150 years, somebody probably did it ahead of you, So all you had to do was go in the file and pull out, like meritorious act. Okay, pull out a meritorious act and see what the guy wrote. Not that I copied what the guy wrote, but you get an outline of, okay, I know where this is going, or for a fire report, or, So it got to the point I says, wow, this is real easy. And I'm telling you, like, even when I got to 290, there was reports and memos and stuff in there from the 70s. And I was there in 1990. So, I got promoted, and I'm going around going, this paperwork is easy. Now I start thinking, like, how am I going to be at fires? Now the fires got me worried. I got this paperwork thing down pretty good, but now it's the fires. But like I said, it's the worst thing is it's not easy being a boss. You go from worrying about really one person. You just got to take care of yourself. And get your stuff in order. Now I got to worry about 4, 5. Maybe more, I mean, like it being in the engine, if the truck gets in trouble, I'm worried about them. I got to worry about my own guys. And when you're working in the truck, even in the engine, guys get separated, the guys outside, guys inside, guys on the roof, things could happen, and it's beyond my control. And I'll tell you, my worst fear was having to face a family, you know, of a brother lost, and them looking at me, and I know what they're thinking. Well, my son, daughter, you know, husband is gone, and why are you still here? You know, and I'll tell you, let me see, 3 years after I retired, we lost Richie Scafani on a Sunday.
Black Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, and I probably would have been working that tour, and because the captain and I would do 24s, and the captain always needed Sundays off for football, so I inevitably was working Sundays. But you know, that was one of my greatest fears, and at that point, you know, after I got to the 24, I was so happy that, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I had guys that sent them home by way of Brookdale Hospital or Kings County Hospital, but they got home. And
Right.
and I'll tell you the truth. You know, you talk about fires and beating companies in. My biggest thing was, I don't care who puts out the fire. I just want to get everybody home.
Yeah.
You know, and that was one of my biggest things. Like, I could care less if I hand a civilian a gun, I was going to put it out. I mean, just whatever puts the fire out and gets everybody home. You know, that was real important to me. But just another thing about Richie Scafani, who was really a great guy. But 2 years ago, before the COVID, I was on a cruise to Mexico, and I'm at the pool, and I'm, you know, kibitzing, talking to a guy, and he goes, "Hey, where you from?" I go, "Well, I'm from New York." I go, "Queens." He goes, "Oh yeah, me too." So, "What part of Queens?" I said, "Rockaway." He says, "Oh," he says, "I'm up from you know, up near Mass, but somewhere up there." He goes, "Oh, I got a." He says, "What did you do?" I said, "I was a fireman." He goes, "Oh, my brother-in-law, my cousin's a fireman. Maybe you know them." I said, "Well, where'd they work? In Brooklyn?" He goes, "No, the Bronx." He puts out the names. I don't know, you know. So he's sitting there. Now, picture this. It's 95 degrees. We're on a cruise ship in the sun. And then the guy says to me, he goes, "Maybe you know my really dear friend." And he goes, "Look at me." His arms, he's getting goosebumps. His arms and his legs, all goosebumps. I go, "Who's your friend?" He goes, "Richie Scafani." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Now, this is February. I had just been to his memorial mass 2 weeks before, you know, and I was like, I was amazed. I just couldn't believe it. And the guy was like, "Look at me," you know, just him thinking about Richie. And I felt it was almost like something from him going, "You know what, Rich? I'm okay. I'm okay." You know, because I never experienced anything that weird before in my life. And I'm telling you, it was 95 degrees. You know, this guy shouldn't have been getting the chills sitting out in the sun at the pool, you know. But so we talked a little further, and you know, talked about Richie, but he was a great guy, and tough loss, you know.
Yeah, that if you look back, I think in the decade of the 2000s, the only day worse than that one, Black Sunday, of course, is 9/11. You know, but
Right.
that, you know, maybe in the Father's Day fire too in June of '01. But that was, I mean, it's one thing to lose guys in one incident, that's terrible enough, but to have two separate incidents, you
The
know,
same
on
day,
the
yeah.
same day, you know, you can't even fathom it. You know,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Then, you know, well, we had a couple of we Atlantic Avenue, we had, and then Vandalia, which was tragic.
Both in '98, 6 months
Yeah,
apart. I think Atlantic was June of '98, Vandalia December.
Vandalia was in December. Yes,
Yeah.
and it was crazy. I was working the night before and the day after, and I remember a lieutenant was covering, who I knew, was working in a truck with me the night before, windy night, and then Vandalia was the next night, and he goes, "Richie, we were working together the night before. If that was the night before, that's you and me at that fire," you know. What was crazy about that, and I still live a little bit about that fire. I did the inspection on the building in April, the BI inspection, and I gone through the building, and you know, I always felt like, what did I do wrong? How did I miss? Because the problem in that building was the sprinklers were out on that floor, and I kept reliving the fire and the fact that those guys got killed, and I'm saying, did I contribute to that? Because I I didn't ask enough questions in the building. And crazy as it seems, officers normally don't get off the rig to go into the building with the men for BI. But I did, because I hadn't been in the building a long time. I had never been in the basement. So I went in with the guys, and we checked the book to make sure they were doing these sprinkler inspections. We went down the basement. I checked the valve, make sure the valve was on. We started going through the building, and then a run came in. We took in the run, and I made them go back to finish the inspection, and the men were mad because I dragged them back there. And what came to play is this. I don't know whether it was the city or the job, but somebody was looking to get somebody for this fire, and I think they were looking at me for the inspection. So we had a rotation kid that was working with us, and they got him downtown first to sit in front of these lawyers, and they were asking questions like, "Well, what did the lieutenant do?" And he says, "Well, the lieutenant got off the rig, came in with us." They actually at one point I think called him a liar. That's a lie. So what are you talking about? It's a lie. Lieutenants in this officers in this job do not get off the rig and go in a building. He says, "Well, I don't know what everybody else does, but he did." So he says, "Well, what happened then?" And they said, "Well, we went to the building. Everything I discussed, we did." So then they said, "And then what happened?" He says, "Well, then we had a run." And he says, "All right, you had the run. Then what did you do? You went for lunch, didn't you?" He says, "No, we went back to the building, and the men were complaining." So the young fellow actually made it better for me that, at first I think they thought they got him because they thought everybody's going to be lying, like there was a big cover up, like we did something wrong. And what happened with this building, it wasn't a city building, so it didn't come under city code, and they had these section valves in the ceiling. Now, the reason why we don't have that stuff is because you'll never know if a section valve's off. We always check the main valve. Mm-hmm. I had no idea there was any kind of section valves. Certainly, if I knew that, we would have checked it. And the crime is, I had the guys in the building, and I go, guys, we're never going to have a serious fire in this building. This is 6 months before. And they go, "Why, Lou?" I said, "You see those things? Those sprinklers. We're going to have a fire, but it won't be a major fire." Little did I know. All right. Yeah. A wind-blown fire. But I mean, even to this day, I kind of go over, could I have done something different? Did I, contribute to that loss, because I did the inspection, and I felt I always kind of, did the best inspection, but you're always looking back saying, maybe I should have asked more questions. But it's so far out of the realm because we don't have those kind of buildings. We have one main sprinkler valve, in the basement, unless I think some high-rise multiple dwellings they used to have section valves, but it was in the incinerator chute or near there, so you could isolate the thing. But there again, it wasn't came under our city code. So that was a tough one for me, and like I said, I here and there, I still, kind of every once in a while drift back. And it's like I said, I remember that inspection like it was yesterday, getting off and going in with the guys and going through the building and having them, do the best inspection possible. And I know a lot of officers would say, "Thank God, Rich, you did the inspection. I'd be in jail right now." Because it was the type of building where you would like, it's a fireproof building. What could go wrong here? Right. And, and it did go wrong. So
that was such a deadly year for the department too. I mean, not counting, I think, another fireman who died of a heart attack, which you unfortunately see a lot as well after he fought a fire, I think in April of 98, I forget his name. I mean, outside of, again, 2001, to lose 6 guys in a single year. I mean, I know during the 60s and the 70s, it was even more deadly, but I can't even fathom 6 guys in the same year in separate incidents, granted, but 3 of them you lose in one given fire. I think Atlantic Avenue was a collapse situation that killed people.
Yeah. I'll tell you, we were fortunate that more guys weren't killed Atlantic Avenue. I didn't have the fire, but I mean, the floor gave way. Those guys went down into the store. Timmy Stagpo was buried, and another guy was buried. The lieutenant of the engine was killed. The captain,
Scotty LaPietra.
Yeah, he lived a couple weeks, a week, 2 weeks, something like that. A week, couple of days. I don't remember exactly, but I think on the Getting Salty, the chief was on there. Gilduff, I think he had the fire, and he talks about They were frame buildings. They were lucky they didn't have a major collapse in that building while they were digging them out. I mean, I'll tell you the truth, it's really a miracle they got them out, because the fire was still raging while those guys are in there trying to dig these guys out. And it wasn't coming easy either. I mean, Timmy was buried in there a long time. So that was, like I said, we were fortunate we didn't lose more people. I mean, we could have lost every one of those guys that went through the floor and fell down there, plus probably another 10 guys that were in there trying to dig them out. Fortunately, they got Timmy out and they got the guys out, but we lost guys there, and it was tragic. And just to relate about that fire, I went there, I think it was the day after. We figured, oh, let me go check out the fire. I heard about the job. We drive down there, and the buildings were down already. It was nothing but a flat lot. And there was a guy there, and I don't know who he was. I'm guessing he was a fine one of the companies. But here's this guy down there with his dog, and he's kind of talking about this thing, and I'm like, this guy's in trouble, I mean, he's just like, he's not thinking clear, I mean, there's nothing here. It isn't like you could see anything. There's no memorial. I mean, it's just a lot, and they got a fence around. I mean, and this guy's kind of walking around the streets aimlessly with his dog. And I'm like, I think I got back to the firehouse, and I talked to the chief, and I think I made a call and said, listen, I don't know, this guy's walking around here with some serious issues, and rightfully so. Guys, when something happens, they think like, oh, maybe I did something wrong, or, like you'll get chauffeurs, like things happen, burst length, lose water, bad hydrant, and those are the guys everybody forgets about, that are taking it hard, to this day, I don't know who that guy was or what company he was affiliated with, but I knew he had to be tied in with one of the companies, or or somebody that was at the fire, and it was like he was numb. So, I think I passed that along the job. Said, listen, these guys, you got to get some counseling going, something. And the counseling, I think it was just starting up back then. I don't even know if it was really.
It didn't take off until after 9/11.
Yeah, I don't think it was full fledged. And I mean, after a while, like you go to a fatal fire, it was right back on the rig. Go to another fire. It was never like, all right, guys, listen, go, take the rest of the tour. You rescued 3 people and they all died or something. Take the rest of the tour, and it shows them, guys. I mean, the Happy Land fire, you look at the video of that, you could see the guys are all numb. Mm-hmm. I mean, these guys not only fought the fire, but now they're moving bodies. And if you looked at it and you didn't know what they went through, you'd say, look at these guys. It's disrespectful what they're doing. They're moving bodies like they're moving wood. But they were just shell shocked, and that was quite a fire they had, and I think there again they got the fire out real fast, thinking like, oh, everything's good, and meanwhile they lost 88 people, right? 80 people.
Yeah, about.
So it's the counseling unit's come a long way, I think, and it's a good thing, that and what happens with firemen and cops and everybody, I don't need any counseling. I don't need to talk to anybody, But yeah, some people, they need to just take a break. I found from working in neighborhoods, like even the end of my career in East New York, I got to the point I was, I think you get burnt out. And I don't think it has nothing to do with the neighborhood, East New York. I think no matter what neighborhood you work in, you spend enough time there, all of a sudden, everything bothers you. Everything gets to you. I mean, I think it's like I said, no matter what neighborhood you're in. But towards the end of my career, I remember one day we were getting calls for these guys that were drunk. We were getting EMS call after EMS call. One guy had him like 10, 11 times, and I was like, I had enough. Like, first of all, I knew these guys were Vietnam vets. They were laying in the street, overserved by the liquor store. So I used to get the EMS guys. I said, guys, can't we get these guys into can't you never mind taking them to the hospital. Can't we get them into program something? He says, Lou, listen, we can take them there, but they don't have to stay. They can just walk right out. All right. He said, but listen, I'll try again. All right. Well, this day I had enough. 11 o'clock in the morning. This guy's passed out. So we go there. We're starting to check on the guy. We get him. I said, guys, come on. I go into the guy's store, the liquor store. I drag him in the liquor store. The guy starts screaming at me, get that guy out of here. I said, no, I'm not getting him out of here. I'm treating him in your store, right? The guy says, I'm going to call the cops. I said, I don't care who you call. So while the guys are checking him out, I'm using one of the guy's chairs from the store. They're checking him out. And this guy and I are having a screaming match through the bulletproof glass, right? He's going to call the cops, have me arrested. I said, do that. I don't care what you do. So the guys treat the guy. EMS comes. We take him out. We load him in the ambulance. A lieutenant from the 7-5 precinct comes, and he goes, Lou, what's going on here? I said, what's going on? I said, this guy is over-serving these guys. He's got them with they're almost dead. They're laying in the street. I said, it's tragic what's going on. I said, I've had enough of it, you know? So he says to me, what? Oh. So he goes, all right, Lou, hold on a minute. So he goes in and talks to the store owner, right? So first he talks to me, talks to the store owner. He comes back out. He goes, hey, Lou, this guy wants me to have you arrested. I said, do it. Go get the cufflinks, put them on me. I said, I had enough. I said, maybe we'll get something done. I said, these guys, it's a criminal thing that's going on here, you know? And he goes, arrest you? No, now he's probably thinking like front page of Daily News.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
one PP is going to come down on him.
And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm probably going to get serious trouble for this. But I'm like, if it's going to get something done with these guys, you know, I'll go for it, you know? And my guys are all looking at me like, oof, Lieutenant's lost it. Maybe we better get somebody here to take care of him. All right. So what ends up happening, he goes, talks to the store owner again. He goes, Lou, listen, I got it worked out with the store owner. How about we just go in and get together, have a little discussion, you know? I said, listen, don't you like the way I'm handling the community here? You know? So he gets me in there and he says, all right. He says, I'll tell you what, if he agrees not to overserve the guys anymore, blah, 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 will you stop taking them into his store to treat them, you know? So I begrudgingly go in, I shake his hand, I go, all right, you know, he kind of, the cop was the mediator here, and he got it squared away where I wasn't getting arrested. The store owner was okay. He kind of got where I was coming from. I said, listen, stop over-serving these guys. You're just killing them. You know, I mean, I understand you got a business, but I mean, and there was like 4 or 5 of them that was regularly in the street. I mean, we go there 4 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock at night, you know, but crazy, tragic end to this story. This guy, I knew him on a first name basis because I've been there with him so many times.
Right.
I'm retired 5 years. There's a little article, I don't know, 20 pages deep in a newspaper. A man is beaten to death by 5 kids in a park on New Lots Avenue. It was that guy. That guy.
That's terrible.
Yeah. And I was like, I couldn't, first of all, I couldn't believe I stumbled on this article, but right. 5 kids beat this guy to death in a park on New Lots Avenue. And I'm like, this is tragic. Cause I mean, here's a guy who I think was a Vietnam vet, you know, and I think most of them were, you know, and this is what happened. So like I said, you know, you get to a point in your career, I think you need a break, you know. Right. I often wonder, like, if the job shouldn't go around, and whether you're in a slow company, a busy company, go into a company, say, listen, you 5 guys want to, you know, a month or 2 months, go to X company, you know, not make them, but request them, you know. And maybe a guy that, you know, guys that work in an area of private dwellings will go to multiple dwellings and bring their private dwelling skill there, and vice versa. So, but do it on a voluntary basis. Normally the fire department goes like, they have this rotation. No, you got to go for 8 months, 10 months, which could be good because these young kids could see other areas of the city. And so. If they're in busy places, they can, you know, pass along what they know to the guys that aren't, you know, aren't so busy, you know?
To your point, though, I do want to say, the guys that you mentioned, those guys being Vietnam vets, unfortunately, it's not really the war overseas that kills them as much as it is the war at home, coming home, the PTSD, obviously dipping, self-medicating, drugs, alcohol,
unemployment, where they're living,
depression.
Yeah.
It's a lethal combination.
Yeah, it's tragic,
Yeah.
But it's a shame. But like I said, I got to the point. That's why when after 9/11, and all of that, I kind of got to the point like I think I've had enough. I've had enough. But and I probably had a lot easier than most guys. So like I said, I'm probably preaching to the choir.
So wait a minute. Let me ask you. Even without 9/11, and and I saw your story and getting salty. We talked a lot about fate off there. It was definitely fate for you that day. Even without 9/11, you were probably thinking about retiring anyway. That summer of 01.
Tell you the truth, no, I really wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't. And if the pension hadn't hit me with the numbers, like I tell guys, I would have been 65, still running up and down the projects in East New York, probably. Because that's the kind of job it is. It just I'll tell you, it's a very tough job to leave, and it's a very tough job to transfer from place to place. And that's why, some guys have trouble with promotion too. You're in a firehouse 8-10 years, all kinds of friendships, and then you move on,
Right.
And sometimes the moves can be great, good for you and good for the job too. So.
Well, let me ask you, because that's an interesting point. It segues perfectly into what I want to ask you. So in 98, when Downey gets the squads up and running, in Brooklyn alone, you get 252 with Eddie Metcalf as captain, and you get squad one. So when you're talking about, I don't know if 290 lost guys by happenstance to SOC, but if you did, having to mitigate, you're happy for the guys, it's a great step up in their careers, but having to mitigate the loss of their skill set and expertise, how does the lieutenant in a non-SOC firehouse manage that?
Well, we did lose some guys. A couple of guys went to rescue, and some. I'm not talking about, just a regular guy. These guys were good guys. All right, knowledge, time in the company. The kind of guys like I didn't have to worry about doing anything with the men. They took care of that. They were like the junior lieutenants in the firehouse. Senior guys. But fortunately, when you have a lot of background and you're doing the job every day, there's guys that are going to fall into that slot. We were fortunate. Like I'm trying to think. I think maybe 3 or 4 guys ended up going to rescue.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't like, okay, today 8 guys went. That's a lot. So like one guy would go, and then another guy, then maybe 2. So we didn't lose a whole big nucleus, where we went from having 20 senior guys to having 10 probies and 4 chauffeurs and 4 senior guys. So which would be a lot for any senior guy to handle. But so and at that time too, we were still going to a lot of fires. So it didn't take long for a probie to all of a sudden, not that he's a senior man, but he's got a pretty good idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember one kid came to the firehouse. He was there. He got there in, I think, March, and he just was catching it. Fire after fire, And
we black cloud.
Yeah, and we had a guy come over on a detail with 9 years, and he worked in Rockaway, and and the guy goes to him, "Hey kid, how many fires you been to?" And he goes, because he heard he was a probie. He says, "The first, when did you get here?" "I got here in March." "How many fires you been to?" He goes, "Well, what are you talking about? Just all hands or second alarms?" He goes, "Just fire, any fires." He says, "Oh, I don't know." He says, "About 9 fires." He goes, "You've been to 9 fires in 2.5 months?" The guy goes, "Yeah." And I know he had, And the guy says, "Hey kid, I'm on the job 9 years. I haven't been to 9 fires. You're telling me you went to 9 fires, But he just, and was that every day? No. There was a stretch there when he was just his group, you're right, Black Cloud was knocking him dead, But it was kind of comical, the guy saying, hey, kid, I've been in 9 fires in my 9 years on the job.
I do have a question here.
Yeah.
And I want to get to it. It's been there a while. It comes from CFD 335, 346. Going back to when you first became lieutenant in 91. How long before his first job as a boss? And he says 90, but it's 91. Do you remember it?
Is he talking about it in 290 or because a lot of times?
Oh, as a boss in 290, right? As how long before his
okay.
My bad, CFD. How long before your first job as a boss in 290?
I'll never forget my first job. It was really comical. It was a night tour. It was like 5 after 6. We get a run. I think it was Wertman was the street. So it comes across as a fire at I don't know, whatever, 28A1 Wertman, let's say. All right. No apartment. I know it's an apartment house because I've been a neighbor a while, and I think it was 12 stories. So no apartment number or anything, right? So I pull up. I mean, there's nothing going on. Some people walking out. So I'm walking up to the building. We use a standpipe there. It's a standpipe building. So the guys would be going for the roll-ups and stuff like that. So I get almost to the door of the building and I asked the chauffeur, I said, get a 10-7, see if you can find out location. So with that, some guy comes walking out the door. I said, hey, is there a fire here? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, yeah. In a calm voice, right? So he goes, yeah, come on with me. So we go through the lobby, and then there was another door that went out into the big yard between a couple of buildings, huge yard. And there's 40 people out there. It's a summer night, all right? Well, it's in June, but it's a nice night. So I'm looking around. I go, where's the fire? He goes like this. I look up. It's out the windows on the 9th floor. Fire's out the windows on the 9th floor. So
they're never on the first floor. Never.
No, 9th floor. So with that, I call the chauffeur now. I said, cancel the call back. I said, tell them to transmit the box. We got a fire on the 9th floor of this building. So now now the guys are coming in. So you couldn't see it in the street. I could only see it because I was out in the courtyard there. So we get the elevator, going up in the elevator. It says, the guys go, Lou, what do we got? We got a fire or something? I go, it's out 2 windows on the 9th floor. They go, what? So we get up there, and then fortunately, the chauffeur was doing the right thing, and we get up there and we charge the line. But the standpipe lines are not good until you actually get them supplied by the engine. There's only a minimum amount of pressure. Sometimes it's barely enough to put out, any kind of major fire. So, but we get in there, and it's like a garden hose, and now we're waiting for the chauffeur to start water on the standpipe. So he starts water, we put out. But that was my first fire. And naturally, I get ribbed by the guys like, oh, yeah, Lou. Oh, yeah, ask for 10-7. And all of a sudden, 1075, working fire, So, the guys are good that way. They never miss a chance to
well, listen, if they don't bust your chops, it means they don't like it. Then you're really in trouble.
Yeah,
if they're that's when you really got to worry. If they're not busting your chops.
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I have another great story about a fire, another standpipe building in Brownsville. Mm-hmm. We go over there. It was a night tour. I think it was about, I'm working. I think it was about 7:00 comes in, fire, top floor, multi-story building, standpipe job again. So we go there. We're second due. 120 and 231 had the fire. So we get up there, and 231's guys there, they're getting a line set up. We had their control guy said, all right, you move up. We'll get you straightened out here. The guy's hooking up to the standpipe. The guys are stretching the line to the door. I'm in the hallway. I hear on the radio, the roof guy's talking about there's 6 people at a window, and he's setting up for a roof rope rescue. I mean, this is way up there. I mean, 12th floor, 11th floor. And the lieutenant, and meanwhile, the hallway's charged. So the lieutenant's calling him on the radio, going, hold up. I think we're going to get it, And I think in the apartment, there was 6 in the back. There was like 11 people total in the apartment. So I'm in the hallway in the smoke, and they were ushering them past. I think the fire was in the kitchen. They were holding it and getting the people out so the people could walk through. So I feel somebody bumping me. I feel somebody else bumping me. 231 gets water. We start their water. and I'm standing like up close to the apartment door in the smoke. And all of a sudden on my turnout coat, I feel bang, 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 somebody pulling on my coat, So what happens? Initially, I'm like, I'm jumping, I mean, what is that? I look down and the smoke clears a little bit, and there's this little girl, and I'm telling you, she couldn't have been more than 4 or 5. All right. I look down at her. She looks up at me, and in a clear, calm voice, she says to me, "Mr. Fireman, are we going to die tonight?" I'm like, I hope not, sweetie. I hope not, And now I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, kid, I just started an hour. I got 14 more hours, and you're asking me if I'm going to die tonight, So I take her by the hand. I said, "Come on, me." I get her back down. I mean, this kid was as calm as can be. Maybe she'd been into a fire before. I don't know, but she was calm as can be. So I walk her down the hallway. I get her back to the stairwell, and I turn her over to the family that was in the apartment there. I don't even know how she got out of the apartment. Whether she walked out herself. I don't know what happened, but it was crazy. But I was just so happy that the men didn't see me walking hand in hand with her, because we got back to the firehouse, what it would have been. "Hey, you ought to see this 4-year-old girl rescuing the lieutenant, taking him back to the stairwell." But talk about out of the mouths of babes. When she said that to me, I couldn't believe it. I just said, "I hope not, sweetie." I'm like, it's like, it was
at that age, though, they're brutally honest.
Oh my God. And she, it was funny because she was just below the smoke a little bit, and it cleared, and I see this little kid, and she was tiny. I'm telling you, it was just, I couldn't believe it. Fortunately for the people in the apartment, the truck, they got the fire, the engine got the fire down. They didn't have to slide off the roof, thank God, to try to rescue 6 people. And, the truck, the engine, they did a great job, and they got the fire. And, but that was quite an event, that little girl. And, that's something you never forget. I can almost see her face looking up at me now, and just, I'm like, really? But, that was another night tour and 290 engine.
Well, let me ask you, before I get to the concluding segment, listen, the time has flown by. Jesus, it's
Yeah,
been an hour and 17. This has been great. I knew it would be great. I told you that off the air, and sure enough, the audience agrees too.
Right.
But that last day, I mean, from the fire department that you knew coming into that class, that 3rd class in November of 78, through the 80s, through the 90s, right after 9/11, and the resiliency that it showed, a lot of change, some for the good, some for the not so good. But nevertheless, walking into the firehouse that last time for that last tour, take me through your last day.
That was a day tour. I kind of got floored with the pension guy, because I went down. I checked on the numbers. I didn't even have any idea of retiring. When he goes, "All right, Rich, here's a story. You got this. He says, "You got 2 more day tours. I put you on vacation, terminal leave. You're done. 2 more day tours." I go, "What?" He goes, "That's it." So that's the kind of time I had to. He says, "Go home and think about it, but you got to get back to me by tomorrow, and this is going to happen." I go, yeah. So I end up making the decision, like, yeah, it's time. I think it's time. 9/11 took a lot out of my sales. You know people. I mean, I wasn't there when for the initial collapses and all of that, but you know a lot of people, and then you're not getting any younger, running up and down the projects, and I says, all right, maybe it is time. But my last day tour was kind of odd, not knowing what was going to happen. Like, what happens? I'm not coming in for the night tour. It was kind of crazy that, like, no, that's it. You're finished. And it goes back, and everybody will tell you the same thing. When you go to probie school, a guy says, you guys better prepare for your retirement, because before you blink an eye, it's going to be 20 years. You're going to be out of this job. And then we're all laughing. You're like, this guy kidding, and then it happens.
Here it is.
And then here it is. And, my last day tour, some of the guys came in, and it was different, like I said, and now I'm thinking, like, oh, I got all this to do. there's no more paperwork for me. I have nothing else to do. I'm finished, you know. Sorry, Cap, but you got it, you know. Yeah, it is quite a feeling. Fortunately for me, I never lost touch with the guys. I never lost touch with that firehouse too, you know. There's a lot of great firehouses, and Sheffield Avenue being one of them. And you know, I still go, you know, I try to go to Medal Day, you know, 9/11. I try to get back to the firehouse for the ceremony there, because the last place I worked, actually, my nephew actually works in the firehouse, so I still have a connection there. But I mean, the thing I liked about the firehouse, or I do like about the firehouse. I don't think it's changed much since the day I was there. Guys are still drilling. Guys are still, you know, no, we turn out here. You know, you got to know your job. You know, I mean, so that has a lot to do with the officers there. There's some great officers working there. As a matter of fact, Danny McWilliams is getting a medal, made a rescue. He's in the truck.
All right.
Yeah. I think it's June 1st, Medal Day. But it seems like, I don't know what it is about that firehouse. But it seems like the tradition is always there, and same people think about the place, gravitate to the place. I just got a quick letter I got to read you.
Sure, go right ahead.
This is from to a mutual friend, Deputy Chief Matty Farrell. He was a deputy chief. He was a borough commander in Manhattan. I talked to him on the phone. I was trying to get a chance to meet with him in Florida. I didn't, but he wrote, old school guy, 92 years old, wrote me this note. You know. He says, writing to you to say thanks for the phone call on your way home. Still amazed how many old timers you mentioned, going back to my Ladder 103 time. He puts in quotes 1963 to 1969. He also rubs it in and says, as a lieutenant and a captain, we called it the war years. Okay. But he writes, I also ran in with 290 and 103 as a battalion chief. He was a battalion chief in the 39 battalion, which we were assigned to at numerous fires. He said, over all the years in the FDNY, 32, and all the places I worked, my mind constantly returns to Sheffield Avenue. He said, what a bunch of saints and sinners. And that, to me, sums up that firehouse. But I'll tell you, for 92, Matty Farrell, I think, could put on a turnout coat and go in the chief's car and run a fire just like he did. How many years ago? I mean,
give him my number. Give him my number. Tell him I want to have him on the show.
It was great talking to him, and like I said, mentioning the same people we all knew. You know, so like I said, that's a guy who hasn't been in that firehouse since 1970. All right, and he still thinks of that firehouse. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy, but you get everybody. You get attached to a certain place you worked, and it never leaves you. Never leaves you.
I think it sums up the fire service, and by extension, the police profession similarly as well. Extraordinary men and women doing extraordinary things.
Right.
You know, that's pretty much it. That's wow. What a letter. What a show. It is now time for the concluding segment called Rapid Fire. 5 hit and run questions from me. You could say pass, of course. 5 hit and run answers from you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First, well, you kind of hit on a few of them during the show, but nonetheless, expand if you don't mind. Most uplifting job you ever responded to?
Okay. That was a fire. I think it was 96. It was 2 blocks from the firehouse. 1:30 in the morning. As I'm going to the rig, I can hear the Brooklyn dispatcher calling me. 290. As I jump on the rig, I pick up the phone. 290. Yeah, 290 to Brooklyn. He goes, Lou, you got jumpers. All right. I go, okay, 10-4. So we respond, and it was north of the firehouse, straight shot, straight down there. So we respond down there, and we can't get close to the building. There's like 4 cop cars. There's an ambulance. There's a cop car on the hydrant. So we pull up. I see the smoke. I transmit the box. I see a body on the ground in front of the doors. I get out. Guys start a line right away. I don't even have to tell them. My chauffeur ends up allegedly nudges a police car off the hydrant and gets up on the sidewalk to hook up. The truck is trying to get a position to get to those windows. I think he allegedly pushed 2 police cars like a quarter of the block. So the guys start stretching the building. Unfortunately, there was nothing we can do for this gentleman that had jumped from the 6th floor, but we're kind of stretching a hose line over him. But I mean, I don't know what kind of fire we have up there. People are flooding out of the building. There's cops all over the building, and they're evacuating the building. And I'm like, guys, leave them there, because these people are below the fire. It's not like they're above the fire. They're all below the fire. So they're evacuating the building, and we're trying to make our way up, the truck and the engine. We're making our way up. And I'm yelling at people, move to the left, because the stairways are crowded. We're moving up. So the truck gets up there, and the engine, my guys are pretty much, the lieutenant in the truck said, Richie, he was a covering guy. He says, what's the story with you guys in the engine? He said, the nozzleman is pushing me up the stairs while he's dragging the line. He said, I couldn't believe it. So they get up there. Now the hallway's charged. And I hear the guys working on the door, and it's so charged. And normally when the hallway's charged like that, the door is open. So I go, the door's open. What is the truck doing? So the first apartment door I hit, it's open. So I open the door. I said, the fire's probably in here. I open the door. I step in a couple of feet. The fire's not there. But the difference is it's next to the fire apartment. So I know now that the fire apartment is just kind of opposite of the one I'm in. So I get down to the door, and now I see that there was gas sprayed all over the door in the hallway, under the apartment door, and it was lit. So that's why the guys were forcing the door. So we had them hold up for just a couple of seconds, because I'm looking under the door. I see fire under the door till we get the line in position. So we get the line in position. We charge the line. The guys kick open the door. So being as I knew the layout, while the guys are doing their normal go around the walls, I shoot across the living room, and I make my way for the back to see, if there's anybody else in there, but also if there's any more fire back there, because the guys are knocking down what's going on in the living room. So I get to the back, and almost at the same time, the truck in the middle bedroom finds the mother and I think a 3-year-old child. I get to the back bedroom, and I find 2 girls, one 9, one 11. They were on bunk beds. And as I'm doing that, the chauffeur from the truck who got position is coming in the 6th floor window, out the front window coming in, So I called to the truck. We got him out. We worked on a couple. We turned him over to EMS. And the truck did a hell of a job too. I mean, the baby, I think, had fallen between the bed and the wall, typical of what happens with little kids sometimes. And one of the guys found the kid, and we got all 4 of them out, and respiratory arrest, 2 of them. But I'll tell you the truth, I think they all lived, and that kind of was one of the most rewarding fires. I didn't even go to the chief about, Chief, the guys did a great job. The deputy comes up to me and he goes, Rich, I want you to put everybody in for unit citation. No questions asked. Look the other way on a car accident,
Allegedly.
Yeah. So we kind of like, Rich, there's something with some car, police cars down there. I said, oh, gee, I don't think it's anything, He said, okay, I still want you to put the guys in. So us in the truck ended up getting a unit citation. And it was a shame the truck officer actually got killed on 9/11. Yeah. He ended up getting promoted captain. I think he was in 13 truck. Nice guy. But he says to me, when we get back to fires, he goes, Rich, I never seen a line get upstairs so fast in my life. And I said, you know what? I said, we just do it a lot. And the guys are just good at what they do. He says, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. But that was probably one of the most rewarding jobs I went to, for the fact that we were able to, I felt bad we couldn't save the father, but
at least being able to get everybody else out.
Yeah. And I think they lived. I think they all lived too.
Right. Which it reminds you why you signed up for the job in the first place,
right.
I imagine.
I mean, they had burns and stuff like that, but I think they made it.
Before I move to the second question, was the captain's name Walter Hines?
Walter Hines. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Walter Hines. Yeah.
Yeah, he got killed on 9/11.
Yep. Yep.
Second, funniest colleagues you ever worked with?
Oh my God, there isn't enough time and enough and
All of them.
all of them. You want them all? We'll be here all night. But I could tell you a funny story about a guy when I was covering. The guy comes into firehouse. He's telling a story. He goes, "Yeah, my wife's got this big dog." He said the dog digs up my yard. He said, he gets out all the time. He said, I had to do something with this big dog. He said, I got kids. I can't have this dog. I'm worried about the kids and all this. So he comes up with the idea that he says his friend is going like 2 states away or something. Mm-hmm. So he gets his friend. He says, listen, do me a favor. Take the dog. Take him wherever the heck you're going 2 states away. He said, let him out. Some farm will take him, something like that. He said, and I'll be rid of this dog. So the guy, his friend does it. All right. So naturally his wife comes home. Where's the dog? Blah, 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 blah. He said, honey, the dog's been getting out. He'll probably be back. Don't worry about it, So this goes on for like a day, So his wife goes, maybe I should put out some flyers. Maybe I should contact some people to try to, locate the dog. So he goes, you know what, honey? Why don't you do that? Go out, take some advertisements, So his wife spends about, I think it was $450 or $500 advertising a lost dog. All right. So he goes, you know what, honey? Besides that, why don't we put a $500, reward to find the dog, whatever the dog's name was, right? So he puts a $450 $500 for the advertisement, $500 for the reward. All right. A day and a half later, his wife gets a call. We have your dog, right? She goes, oh, calls her husband up at work. They got our dog. He goes, no way, right? She says, yes, they got the dog. They're going to bring him back, blah, 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 blah. He calls up his friend. He goes, what'd you do with this dog? He says, you were going out to Pennsylvania or Ohio. He says, where did you drop him off? He said, I got him about 50 miles out. I figured I'd let him go to nobody's ever going to find him out here. Somebody saw the advertisement in Jersey, sent the dog back. Now the guy was out $500 for the advertisement, $500 for the reward. He goes, my God, I should have just shot the dog.
Swing and a miss, he struck him out. Just a bit outside.
So that's just like one of the funniest guys. Like you just can't believe it,
Oh God, gain a dog, lose a grand.
I used to tell everybody, what my biggest job as an officer in New York City Fire Department is? They go, no, what? Protecting the men from themselves.
Yep. Oh boy, man.
Yeah. There's a ton of characters I could tell you about, but there's just too many. I want to give everybody their due, But
we have to do a part 2 for that alone.
Yeah.
Third, funniest call you ever responded to?
Okay, this funniest call. June, was it a June? Summer night, Friday night. It's like 6:02. I just started at 6:00. So we got to run up Pennsylvania Avenue, heading south. Traffic Friday in Brooklyn is murder. Traffic backed up for 3-4 blocks to Linden Boulevard. The chauffeur swings out into oncoming traffic. A guy's coming down. We're trying to squeeze in. All of a sudden, rip. Oh, jeez. We hit this guy or he hit us. I don't know which. All right. So the chauffeur says, should I stop? I go, yeah. So we stop. So the guys go, you want us to get out, Lou? I said, no, let me get out and talk to this guy. I don't want these guys hearing, but if I can pay this guy off for his damages, that's what I'm going to do. You know why? Because I'm going to be there for 2 hours with a chief. He's going to ask me, I got to do all kinds of reports. I'll be typing all night. I'm going to be running all night for fires and all kinds of runs. I said, this is like a nightmare. All right. So I'm willing to go out there and maybe say, hey, guy, $50, take it to a guy, get it fixed. Not a lot of damage. I think we took the trim off his side door. So I get off the rig and I come across the only lawyer in East New York,
Of course.
He's not a lawyer, but he knows the whole procedure. I don't know if he's been in an accident with a fire truck or not, but I get off the rig, I go back there, and he goes, "Look at my car," and he starts screaming at me. "I know what you gotta do. You gotta call your chief boy, get him over here, take report, blah blah." He's going on and on and on. He's yelling at me. I'm going, "Oh boy, this is going from bad to worse," you know. So I go, "Oh, hold on, guy, take it." Now I haven't reported any accident or anything yet. Mm-hmm. So allegedly. So I said, "Hold on, guy, hold on, take it easy." And he's still yapping away at me. Walk back to the car. "Look at the car." So I walk back with him to the car. He's got his passenger window rolled down. And I look on the floor in front of the front seat, and there is a bottle of vodka in a brown bag, 3/4 empty on the floor of the car. So I am like, wait a minute, this tour may be saved yet. So I go back to the guy, and he goes, "When are you going to have the chief come here and take the report?" Blah, blah, blah. I said, "Well, guy, listen, let's just hold on a minute. Let me, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Have you been drinking tonight?" And he looks at me and he goes, he didn't lie. He goes, "I might have had a nip." I go, "A nip?" I said, "You got a empty, 3/4 empty bottle of vodka on your floor in your car." I said, "Listen, but I'll do whatever you want." I said, "You want me to call my chief boy here?" I said, "He'll come here. We'll take a report." I said, "But you know what's going to happen when I do that? He's going to call 75 precinct, and they're going to come." I said, "And they're going to make a report." And I said, "If they see that bottle of vodka or find out you've been drinking," I said, "we might have a problem here." I said, "It's Friday night at 6:00. All right." I said, if they lock you up, you're not getting out till Monday." And I said, "Besides, they're going to probably impound your car." All right. So he goes from being a good old lawyer to he knows his rights. And he kept saying, "I know my rights." He goes, "Maybe we can forget about this, Lieutenant." So I go, "Are you absolutely sure you want to forget about this?" "Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Have a good night." I said, "You too, and enjoy the rest of the weekend." I get back on the ring. I said, "Let's get out of here." I went from a nightmare to like, it was like you couldn't dream if this could ever happen, you know? I mean, this guy was yelling and screaming, but when I came up with a bottle of vodka, he goes, and then he tells me I might have had a nip. I said, "Oh man," I said, "if they catch you, they might throw you in jail for the weekend."
Spend the weekend in the drunk tank at the 7-5. Four words for you, brother. Only in New York. Only in New York.
Crazy. Man. So that was probably one of the funniest, craziest runs I had.
Boy. Fourth, favorite bar or restaurant in New York City?
Famous bar or restaurant. I'm gonna give the Harbor Light a plug in Newport. 130 in Newport.
There you go.
They got cold Guinness there on tap.
There you go. I'll have to check it out. And fifth and finally, if you can grab somebody fresh out of the rock, they just came on the job, they're all charged up with 23 years of experience under your belt. If you can pull them to the side, give them some advice. This is my version of the old school tip of the day. What advice would you give them?
I would probably tell them, listen, and this probably goes for cops too. Listen, nobody came to you and dragged you out of your house and said you're going to be a fireman. All right, you volunteered for this. You signed up for this. All right, and there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad that come with it. And actually, I'll use part of Koob's line, which actually came out like, we're doing the Lord's work. And I used to tell the men all the time, I used to drive them nuts. "Hey, we're doing the Lord's work." "Yeah, we know. Yeah." But we're in God's army and we're doing his work and we're fighting the war that never ends. And just keep that in mind, and, try not to, when you're having a bad day, don't bring it to the firehouse. And also just try to be good at basic stuff. This job is not that difficult. A lot of it's just basic stuff. And when the basic things happen, everything goes smooth, I mean, yeah, there's crazy stuff that happens, or there's, guys, sliding down, picking up people ropes, climbing ladders, but their basics are good. And, try to keep that in mind that, don't be disheartened. And like I said, you signed up for this. So always keep that in mind. All right. That, we're battling a war that never ends. And I think Dennis Smith said, yeah, tonight could be the night. That was one of his things. And, you just never know. That's one thing with the fire department. You could be sitting in a firehouse in Queens, and next thing you know, you're in the middle of Manhattan fighting a fire in a high rise. You just never know. So that would be my tip, just to, stick with basics, try to learn your job, stick by the senior guys. And guys will say this all the time, sit at the kitchen table with your mouth shut and your ears open. And don't be afraid to ask those guys questions. I had a senior man once when we had a bunch of junior guys come. He says, Lou, these kids haven't asked me one question yet. Now, here's a guy that's been in the company for 17 years, gone to more fires than you can shake a stick at. Haven't been asked one question. It could be because they were afraid of him, but
allegedly,
you can get by that, because guys, no matter how gruffy they can be, will eventually break down and give you your answer, especially when it has to do with the company. So that would be my old school tip of the day.
This was fantastic. Don't sign off yet. Stay goodbye. Stick around, so because we'll say goodbye off the air.
Okay.
Before I say goodbye to the audience, is there any any other shout outs you want to give?
I'd like to give a shout out to Larry O'Donnell. I want to be quick here. Larry O'Donnell, I mentioned earlier, is going through. He's got an autoimmune disease that I think is 1 in a million, and he's getting all kinds of treatments. I don't think they have a lot of answers for him. I'm pretty sure it's 9/11 related. And I'm like, if anybody out there knows anybody that's really into that autoimmune thing, because I know there's a lot of different versions, try to reach out. And, I think the family can use all the help they can get. Absolutely. Because it's not going good. And I think, they're at wit's end, because I think the medical field just doesn't know what to do for them, But here's a guy that, like I said, is probably the strongest guy that you ever want to meet. And, I feel bad that he's going through this in retirement, So
give him my best.
Yes.
Our best to the O'Donnell family. My shout out to you, of course, like I said, stick around, and to the audience, shout them out in order: Joe Maliga, Ruth Ann Griffin, Raquel and Peter Pranzo, Bill Kennedy, retired NYPD Sergeant out of Truck 1 Emergency Service, your daughter, of course, Jeanette Milholland, William Cooney, Stu Kelsaw, CFD 335, 346. I watch Baywatch, not your mother's role model. That makes me laugh every time I see it. Thank you for everybody for tuning in tonight. And for those of you that didn't pop up in the chat, if you were watching, I appreciate it as well. Coming up next on the Mike to New Haven podcast, it's funny because he comes from an FDNY family that he went into the police department and he went into the emergency service unit. He spent most of his career in Truck 6 in Brooklyn. And on top of that, he was in FEMA from 2003 until 2012. Joining me Tuesday for volume 14 of the E-Men inside the NYPD's emergency service unit, retired NYPD emergency service specialist, Carl Duenzel. In the meantime, on behalf of a retired FDNY Lieutenant Rich Duemig, this has been volume 17 of the Best of the Bravest, interviews with the FDNY's elite. We will see you next time. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend. Be safe.